Welcome to this explainer. Okay, we are diving straight into this because we are looking at a night that is going to be studied by security professionals and historians for decades to come. Just picture this. It's the evening of April 25, 2026. You're at the Washington Hilton in Washington, D.C. for the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner. The room is absolutely packed with tuxedos, elegant gowns, high-stakes political energy, and the sitting president of the United States. And then, out of nowhere, gunfire completely shatters the evening.
Imagine this setup. 2,600 guests. We are talking about the absolute top brass of the United States government all under one roof. And yet, somehow, one unguarded stairwell changes everything. What really should have been a heavily secured, impenetrable fortress essentially became the site of a near assassination.
So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the chaos at the Hilton, break down the timeline minute by minute, look at the accused suspect Cole Allen, unpack his manifesto, and finally, we'll examine the fallout and misinformation.
All right, Section 1. Chaos at the Hilton. The scene before the shots.
To really understand the gravity of this event, you've got to look at the context of that night. It was Donald Trump's first time attending this dinner as a sitting president because, he declined to attend during his first term and in 2025. So the tension and anticipation in the room were already incredibly high. But there was this massive security paradox. Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe noted that, given the sheer concentration of senior government officials, security expectations were almost on the level of a national security event. But the venue reality? Vastly different. The Washington Hilton was still a functioning hotel that night. It had open public lobbies, everyday guests walking around, and crucial vulnerabilities, specifically unguarded stairwells leading down from guest rooms to the areas right outside the secured ballroom.
And when we talk about senior officials, just look at the density of the administration's leadership that was there. President Donald Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, FBI Director Kash Patel, and multiple cabinet secretaries. They were all packed into one room alongside 2,600 journalists and guests. So the crucial takeaway here is that the potential severity of a threat was absolutely massive. A breach in security didn't just threaten one person, it threatened the core of the entire executive branch.
Moving on to Section 2, minute by minute, reconstructing the attack.
The physical timeline shows just how rapidly a normal, glamorous evening unraveled into absolute terror. At 8 p.m., the suspect takes a mirror selfie in his 10th floor hotel room. He is dressed all in black with a red tie, heavily armed, and literally carrying pliers and wire cutters. He then heads down an unguarded back stairwell. At 8:30 p.m., he sends a manifesto to his family. And just 6 minutes later, at 8:36 p.m., shots are fired near the main checkpoint. By 9:45 p.m., the venue is evacuated and President Trump departs for the White House.
Let's zoom right in on that chaotic epicenter at 8:36 p.m. The suspect runs past the main metal detector screening area. Gunfire suddenly erupts. CNN anchor Wolf Blitzer was actually just feet away when this happened, reporting that the suspect fired what looked like a very serious weapon. Secret Service agents immediately yell, "Shots fired." The suspect trips, is violently tackled to the ground, and stripped of his shirt right there to ensure he isn't wearing explosives. And during this intense exchange, one law enforcement officer is actually struck in his bullet-resistant vest, though evidence later suggested the suspect didn't fire that specific round.
Section 3 now. The accused, Cole Allen. Who exactly was the suspect?
So, Cole Thomas Allen is a 31-year-old resident of Torrance, California. On paper, he is a Caltech graduate with a master's in computer science. He worked as a part-time tutor at C2 Education. He even won a Teacher of the Month award. A former pastor described him as a gentle and quiet young man, but investigators also linked him to a Connecticut-based group called the Wide Awakes, noting that he regularly trained at shooting ranges and had made radical statements to his family. The contrast between this quiet tutor and his actions that night is just stark.
And let's look at the actual physical threat he posed. He brought an absolute arsenal into a functioning hotel. We're talking a 12-gauge Maverick shotgun, an Armscor Precision .38 pistol, and multiple knives. Because of this, he now faces severe legal consequences from the Department of Justice, including 3 massive federal charges. One of those is attempting to assassinate a United States president. He is now facing life in prison.
That brings us to Section 4, the manifesto and motives, unpacking the text file titled Apology and Explanation.
Just minutes before the attack, Allen sent a document to his family. We are going to read a sanitized excerpt here, but it's really important to note that this text contains extreme, baseless, and harmful accusations. He wrote,
I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. Turning the other cheek when someone else is oppressed is not Christian behavior. Now, what's really notable here is that while he didn't name Donald Trump explicitly in this text, the Department of Justice announced that their preliminary findings suggested the administration was indeed the intended target. His manifesto also detailed a few other alleged grievances. He cited retaliation for federal strikes on what were claimed to be Pacific drug boats in early 2026. But honestly, what's most striking is that he expressed explicit outrage at the very security vulnerabilities he was exploiting. He wrote, "What the hell is the Secret Service doing? No damn security. Not in transport, not in the hotel." He was genuinely astonished that a heavily armed individual could just walk down a hotel stairwell right toward the president. Finally, Section 5, Fallout and Misinformation, the macro-level impact.
Let's zoom out to the broader context for a second, because a factual crisis almost instantaneously turns into an information crisis. We really need to ground ourselves in the astonishing historical context of this. This event was the third apparent attempt on Donald Trump's life since 2024. And furthermore, it is the second presidential assassination attempt to ever take place at the Washington Hilton, echoing the shooting of Ronald Reagan way back in 1981. This firmly places the event within a deeply concerning, broader trend of political violence in America.
And yet, despite the stark, physical reality of the violence, the internet just immediately fractured into split realities. Take a look at these rapidly spreading, totally debunked conspiracy theories. Claims that the attack was a staged false flag just exploded across social media. Rumors circulated that the suspect wore an Israel Defense Forces sweatshirt or that his name was massively searched in Israel before the incident even happened. Independent fact-checkers and law enforcement officials rapidly dismantled these claims, confirming there was zero evidence of any foreign involvement or staging.
And this brilliantly illustrates the societal fallout we are currently facing. As NBC News reported, conspiracy theories and a knee-jerk skepticism of current events have become the default response for a growing number of Americans. When there is a fundamental loss of trust in institutions, folks instantly retreat to partisan narratives following acts of violence, completely regardless of what the actual physical facts on the ground dictate.
Which brings us to what you should really take away from this explainer today. We have the timeline, we have the suspect, and we have the history. But the lingering issue is this. How does a nation move forward when split realities and conspiracy theories become the default response to political violence? It is a profound challenge to American political discourse, and it's something we all need to deeply consider. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this complex event. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.